So, the moment of truth. I went 2 weeks on this mod just to make sure that I wasn't losing my shit. You can see here on the pump. Let me see if I... 14.663 gallons. And you can see here on the 241.1. I even reset both trips just so there could be no discrepancy here, even trip B. So, where are we at? 17.7 miles to the gallon. My car's pretty much spot on. It's like 17 miles to the gallon is what I averaged over this last tank. So the supporting mods have definitely more than made the car pick up faster. Made it respond quicker. The throttle response is there. It even sounds a little bit better. But I've also lost about 3.5 to 4 miles to the gallon overall with wrapping the air box for colder air, with putting a lower induction box into the system to actually create like the P71 town car hybrid. P71 lower box because it's got the huge giant inlet, where the town car has a little small one, so I increased the airflow on the bottom end. And then on the top end, I wrapped everything from the actual box all the way to the throttle body, and I could actually stick my hand in there. It's substantially cooler even just by feel compared to what it was before. Before, you could run this from my house to work and then grab the plastic ducting that goes to the throttle body, and it was hot. But now with it being wrapped, you can take your fingers, stick it under the end of the wrap by the time I get to work, and it's like, oh, it's nice and cool. Substantial difference. The grams per second went up. It's got a K&N drop-in air filter. With the supporting mods, do I feel like I actually got more power out of the vehicle? Absolutely, definitely feel a difference. It's more throaty sounding. It kind of seems with the increased airflow. It seems like the throttle response is better, just a tad bit with the K&N and just how peppy and performing like overall it is. But I lost a ton of fuel mileage. I was talking to some guys and in the performance world, and they're like, well, everybody says, increase your cold air, you're going to get better fuel mileage. That's not always the case. If you're increasing airflow and it's more dense air and you can fit more oxygen in a tighter space, you also are going to introduce more fuel into the motor. So you're not always going to get better gas mileage. What happens when people typically have a better performing car? They make the car perform just a little bit better, right? Which kind of negates the better fuel mileage, and oftentimes you lose mileage because your foot knows that car is performing better. Not only that, if you're putting more oxygen into the cylinder and then the oxygen sensor reads a specified reading coming out, it's going to adjust for fuel accordingly anyway. So a lot of times when you have a hotter intake setup where it's not as efficient, it's not making as much power, and it's to the extent of those cafe ratings really being maxed out, that's when you start to see those better numbers. Not necessarily with supporting mods. Something to think about. On this particular setup, I went 2 weeks in a row because I thought the first week, there's no way I'm getting 17.9 miles to the gallon. I just went from like 21, 22 down to 17.9 after doing these mods and stuff. I'll run it another week before I open my mouth and tell people what's going on. Well, here we are the second week, and I'm not even making it a full week through before I gotta actually fill up the tank anymore. Yeah, pretty eye-awakening when you see performing mods are going to make the vehicle run better if you know how to put them together right. It's gonna perform, but there's also a downside to that. You're gonna perform, but you're gonna lose some fuel mileage as well. You're not always gonna gain. Y'all be blessed.